Hey there friends, welcome back to the channel. My name is Andy and today we're taking a look at the biggest and most anticipated RPGs of 2021. Now there are many different types of role-playing games, be they for example Western or Japanese, and so in this video we'll take a look at all of them. As always, if I've forgotten any, then let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. First up is Digimon Survive. Now, if you have class and good taste, you already know that Digimon is awesome. Compared to Pokemon, however, Digimon has not really been blessed with an absolute mad amount of larger titles. The only legendary gem I can think of is the original Digimon World, but that came out more than 20 years ago. Digimon Survive then is not only one of Digimon's most exciting titles, but it's also looking like its perhaps most creative one. In short, this still is your classic Digimon story. A group of teenagers on a summer camp suddenly find themselves in a strange new world with strange new, you probably know the drill by now, digital monsters who they befriend and must ultimately find their way back into the real one with. Now the really interesting thing about Digimon Survive is the fact that it's not only using a gorgeous animation style, but that it promises a darker, more mature Digimon story coupled with spectacular music, 2D graphics, and exciting turn-based combat with the inclusion of over 100 different types of Digimon. In addition, it's a story-based game where your choices are meant to have impact on the lives of the Digidestined. I for one am very excited for Digimon Survive, and is scheduled for release sometime this year. Next up is Tales of Arise. Now the Tales series is one I've never really gotten into that much. It's somehow always been a bit too capital J RPG for my tastes, if you know what I mean. But Arise seems different. One of the biggest changes is the graphics engine, as the game uses Unreal Engine 4. Compared to the last titles, this new game looks vastly updated and more visually appealing, allowing for a more realistic presentation while still retaining the traditional vibe of the Tales series. The fact that this game is set in its very own universe might make it that much easier for new players to pick up as well, and everything from the world to the combat is made to be more fluid and more fast-paced. I personally think Tales of Arise looks like the most exciting Tales game in forever, and I'm very excited to see how it turns out when it releases later this year. And speaking of Tales, next up is Scarlet Nexus, a game whose director and producer previously worked on the Tales series. Scarlet Nexus is another JRPG, but this time an action JRPG. It's set in an alternate reality near future type universe where a so-called psionic hormone was discovered in the brain, allowing for extrasensory powers. However, these new powers attracted monsters, which in turn is fought by extra powerful humans known as psionics, who have been recruited by the Other Suppression Force, OSF, tasked with taking down this alien threat. Now this might sound a bit convoluted, but I'm sure it'll make sense in the actual game. Scarlet Nexus will take you on a dual journey where you follow two different characters in this so-called brain punk future when it comes out June 25th. Moving on, we have King's Bounty 2. King's Bounty 2 is the sequel to the classic turn-based RPG of the same name, which came out all the way back in 1990, if you can believe it, but which received a spiritual successor, King's Bounty: The Legend, in 2008. King's Bounty 2 promises the return of its turn-based and tactical RPG mechanics, but with an entirely new and epic story, factions, enemies, and an array of options, all set to the backdrop of a realistic world with a deep lore. In addition, you'll even be able to play as different characters, and even recruit, develop, and command your own personal army in this non-linear adventure where your choices are supposed to matter. King's Bounty 2 sounds promising, but we'll have to find out how awesome it really is when it releases this summer on August 24. Then we have Final Fantasy VII Remake, Intergrade, and Intermission. Why the two titles? Well, other than Square Enix never making anything simple, Intergrade refers to Final Fantasy VII Remake's PlayStation 5 update, which will enhance the graphics and frame rate for that console. Intermission is the game's upcoming brand new expansion pack, which incidentally will also only be available on PlayStation 5. Here, we'll play as Yuffie, a character from the original Final Fantasy VII. In this expansion, she apparently works alongside Avalanche to get a hold of powerful materia in the hands of the Shin Corporation, and hopefully we'll get to see some new and exciting parts of Midgar. Final Fantasy Intergrade and Intermission will be available on June 10. Next up is Shin Megami Tensei 5. This is yet another title belonging to a classic series getting a revival, but if you're unfamiliar, SMT is perhaps some of the closest you can get to another series, Persona. This game is set in modern-day Tokyo, where God is dead and the world is being fought over by angels and demons. As in Persona, you'll be able to immerse yourself in a parallel world where these demons and monsters exist, and you'll be able to take advantage of this fact with your own set of demons. Apparently, the game is trying to depict the anxiety of the times tied to unemployment, unease about retirement, terrorism, nuclear weapons, and problems at home. So if you're into dark JRPGs, then watch out for Shin Megami Tensei 5 on Nintendo Switch later this year. Moving on, the Pathfinder series is set to make its return with Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. This game is currently being funded on Kickstarter, but is set to release this September, and it's an indirect sequel to Pathfinder Kingmaker. Now, as with the latter, Wrath of the Righteous is an isometric role-playing game where you lead your characters from above in a dark fantasy world with deep customization, where your choices matter, and where your choice of class and race determines how you're able to shape the world around you. Pathfinder will offer a non-linear story where you'll even be able to command armies and defend your settlements, and a new tutorial system is being added to help new players aboard. Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous is set to release in September later this year, but you can already play the beta now if you join the Kickstarter at particular tiers. A particularly big game set to release this year is Horizon Forbidden West, a direct sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn. Forbidden West won't only update the graphics, but offer a new story, new characters, new metal monsters, and a new setting in the western parts of the United States. As in the first game, you'll be using your bow to take down your enemies, taking advantage of whatever tech and upgrades you have acquired. This is more of an adventure RPG, so while it won't be as deep in terms of mechanics and some other games on this list, you can probably expect a beautiful open world and a whole lot of quests to complete. Further, we have Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis. This is a free-to-play online action RPG based on its older namesake Phantasy Star Online 2, and New Genesis is a massively updated and enhanced version of that game. You'll essentially be customizing your characters, choosing your own fighting style and fight enemies aplenty, and you'll be able to do it all with your friends. The game clearly looks a whole lot better than it used to, so if you're a fan of the old Phantasy Star Online 2, this is probably worth checking out on June 9. Another MMORPG to look out for is the next-gen version of the Elder Scrolls Online, which will feature enhanced visuals and frame rates. This is a deep RPG with a massive open world, and even though it might not be exactly like the single-player Elder Scrolls game, it's the closest thing you'll get to while being able to play with friends and strangers. This update launches alongside the new expansion, Blackwood, which among other features will let you visit Leowyn, visit Oblivion again, and recruit companions. This all releases on consoles on June 8th, but it's already out on PC right now. And those were my top 10 picks for the biggest and most anticipated RPGs of 2021. Of course though, we're essentially already halfway through the year, and there have been some massive releases already. Mass Effect Remastered lets you revisit or experience for the first time the original Mass Effect trilogy in all its glory with updated graphics. Nier Replicant gives you the Nier experience with fast-paced action and a remade world. Bravely Default 2 released as a sequel to the first game with more JRPG stuff, the Kingdom Hearts series released on PC, the updated version of World of Warcraft Burning Crusade released, and so much more. There are indeed a ton of other RPGs I haven't mentioned, but I thought these were the most important ones. If you feel like I've left any out, then let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, friends. If you enjoyed the video, then please leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you next time. Cheers!